been asked to remind everyone to speak into the microphone. I guess they got some new technical stuff. It's hard for people to hear. But last meeting as chair. Ooh. You want to give some speeches there? No.
Did we bring a, hey Nancy, some kind of flag gift?
Commissioner.
I did give y'all a jar of honey, but I'm not saying anything.
Honey was all
Eric?
we care about.
Yes, sir. Welcome back. We do have one thing that's not on the agenda I'd like to include, and that's to recognize Commissioner Crowley. This will be his last meeting, so we'd like to let him know how much we appreciate him being here. So,
You want to do it now?
yeah,
Absolutely.
go ahead and get it out.
Absolutely. We need to do an agenda modification. And am I supposed to come up there? Right.
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
That's the minute.
Yeah. Agenda modification to
all
do
four?
this.
Aye. Motion passed.
Voting on amending the, modifying the agenda so we can make sure we recognize you.
right.
We just wanted to recognize you for all the dedicated years that you've put in as a member of the CRTPA and representing Gaston County.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, and we wish the best to you.
All right. Well, I do appreciate that, Harry. Quickly say, I want to thank Harry, the staff, Thornton Williams as an attorney, all of you who have made it a pleasure to serve here. I recognize we don't always agree on things, but maybe that's good too, so that we give different points of view. I do want to continue to emphasize that those of you who will go forward with the mission of the CRTPA, that you remember bikes are very important, sidewalks are very important, but we also need to be focused on moving freight and keeping our major infrastructure up for the transportation. Where our railroads are always in danger, they're not being utilized. We need to do something about that port at St. Joe and getting it opened back up. And obviously we need to keep our airports working well. And I know that's an importance to all of you, but thank you very much again, and I appreciate everyone else.
We got a motion on the consent.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All for the motion? Aye. All right, Harry.
I'd just like to remind all the citizens who are here that if they wish to comment, please fill out a comment card, which is in the back, and give it to Yolanda over here, and we'll address it at the appropriate time. Thank you. First item 4A is amendments to the Transportation Improvement Program. We have two, both just a matter of changing who's responsible for the project, who will carry it out. So we have Mamie Drive. They're both in Jefferson County. State will build that particular project, and then Old Lloyd Road sidewalk. The county will build that one. So these are amendments to the thing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's a roll call.
It's a roll call vote. So Yolanda, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Walker,
Here. Aye.
Is that aye or?
Commissioner Merritt,
Aye.
Commissioner Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Deloge,
Aye.
Commissioner Dozier,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindley,
Aye.
Commissioner Nick Maddox,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Madison.
Aye.
Thank you.
That's all. Passed, I guess.
It passed.
Next item is modifications to the long-range transportation plan and regional mobility plan. The first item is for Crawfordville Highway, and this is to bring it in to make it eligible for federal funding and be able to move forward on this particular project.
Okay, where are we?
Need a motion?
Yes.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Later.
You want to let speakers, citizens go first? Or?
Yeah, this is a roll call vote as well.
Okay.
But if we have speaker cards?
Yes, we have speaker cards. Yes, we go ahead and we have
Peck?
one. Would you please state your name and address for the record? And you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Dana Peck, 2481 Surf Road in Wakulla County. I'm not sure that I'm to speak on this item, 4B or 5E. They both seem to deal with U.S. Highway 98 and U.S. Highway 319. I'm here specifically about the intersection proposal that somehow surprised Wakulla County by not having been brought to the Wakulla County Commission for discussion or debate or approval or support. So if I shouldn't be speaking on this one, stop me now. I think that project was added to the LRTP and the TIP just this year, but the funding has been flowing and it has made at least one commissioner a rich man so far. I appreciate the letter that was written on July the 22nd by the CRTPA to the district FDOT, asking that this project be vetted and that there were people in Wakulla County who were extremely upset, and there are headlines to back that up of when this has been discussed publicly. There has been no safety study for this intersection, and it will direct about 15,700 vehicles to the entrance of Wakulla High School every single day. It will put a traffic light there that will clog traffic even more. This is not a priority of Wakulla County. The chairman of the CRTPA has put this on the agenda and made motions to get this in front of you. But Wakulla County, in an email exchange with the Florida Department of Transportation, said specifically this intersection, 319-98, is not Wakulla County's priority. So here we have something that's not a priority. Traffic north of Crawfordville to Tallahassee is. This is in the southern end. It isn't. There is no safety problem at the moment because there are no accidents to speak of. One minor injury in 5 years. So why is this in front of you? Why is this being funded? Why is this coming out of construction funds for $300 and some odd thousand an acre to buy commissioner's land? Why would you not consider putting a pause on this until there is a safety study, until there's a design that will not deleteriously affect the entrepreneurs who are at this intersection who were kept totally in the dark about it? I'll stop here because I'll probably babble more when it comes up on 5E. Thank you.
Mary Ann?
Yeah, as I understand it, there's only been one public hearing in Wakulla County on this, and that was in 2007. And I would like to know if that's accurate, and if so, why not? And if the Wakulla County Commission has not listed this as a priority, why is it moving forward without the safety study and more public input? I'm just kind of bewildered by why this would be coming up to see us right at this time. It seems not ready for prime
I'd ask Brian
time.
Falk to respond to that.
The Department of Transportation has several public hearings on this PD&E study in this location.
When was the last, and how many?
The last one was 2007. The reference to only one public hearing relates to the realignment being chosen. And after the realignment was chosen, we had only one additional public hearing at that time in 2007.
Okay.
And
I mean,
then-
that's 7 years ago, and that's the last word you've heard from the citizens on this?
Well, we moved forward. We kicked off the design, and it was placed on the CRTPA's Transportation System Management priority list. We coordinated with Wakulla County and moved forward on the design, and that we've had subsequent public meetings. I personally made a presentation to the Wakulla County Board last year about this project and then the whole US 319 corridor. Our district secretary had met with the sheriff, the superintendent of schools, and received no pushback on this project. So we continue to move forward.
You received no pushback from the sheriff or the superintendent of schools?
That's correct.
But you did from the Wakulla County Commission?
No, we did not.
Nobody.
Misinformation? Okay.
In fact, they passed a vote to support the project to move forward.
Actually, there wasn't a vote. There was a motion made to ask DOT to stop, and that motion didn't get a second.
So it died for lack of a service.
Doug?
Commissioner, has Wakulla County Commission,
Could you speak into the mic, please?
has the Wakulla County Commission voted to, in any way, to go forward with this item or expressed its desire to move
I don't think we have
forward?
voted to go forward with it. It's my opinion anyway, and I think the board, that it's two state roads. And I trust their ability to design a safe intersection. It's two state roads. I mean, we don't decide whether they're going to do it or not. We have the choice from the DOT secretary that if you don't want this, you can vote to refuse the funding, basically, and don't get anything there, or you can, and we decided we didn't want to do that. I think I've been on the community traffic safety team since it formed in Wakulla County from the 90s, and this intersection has always been an issue for safety. Now, the geometric design, we don't decide that.
Yeah.
I thought of an idea to do it better. I thought about it more, and I think the way they got it is the best. That's my opinion.
And in reference to a safety study not being done, at face value, that's an accurate statement, because this is a complete realignment. In the development of the plans and the construction of the project, safety will be of utmost concern in the development of this new realigned intersection. So safety is a key component to the development of the plans.
Well, may I?
Go ahead.
Well, what about, it sounds like it's dumping right into the Wakulla County High School traffic flow. Is that a good thing?
And Commissioner Merritt, correct me, but it's dumped.
I went to high school there. All right. It's really dumping out, yes, where the school buses and the stadium comes out. The kids, my daughter's going to be attending this in a couple of years, by the way, so anybody that says that I'm trying to kill my daughter is crazy. But anyway, down the road from that is where the kids go in, and the parent pickup is just slightly down the road. This intersection tees in with where the buses come out. And please remember that 99% of the time, this serves as an intersection, not as a school zone. When it is a school zone in the morning, there's 20-mile-an-hour flashing signs, right? So I don't have any problems with it. That's just me speaking for myself.
And currently, you have students and other pedestrians crossing this road, no signalized intersection, no crosswalk, just at their own peril. The department's proposing putting in this intersection with full pedestrian features at that interchange, thereby improving the safety of pedestrians and cyclists in that area.
And remember, too, that the Capital City to the Sea Trail is going to come through right there also, right, Harry?
And Commissioner,
Hold on, let me let Nick.
I know, but I never finished.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All I wanted to ask you was regarding the Wakulla Commission. It has not taken then any formal vote, pro or con, this project?
Not that I recall.
Okay, that's all I was trying to get established. Okay. But in your personal opinion, you think it's the right thing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Nick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a very peculiar situation to be in. If you got a constituent saying something in contrast to what the chairman is saying, she says it's a safety issue, if I'm understanding correctly. Mr. Chair, I don't think I'm hearing the same sentiments from you. I can't. The question I had was more along the lines of the safety study that Commissioner Lindley asked about. 2007 does seem like a very long time, but I'm a Leon County Commissioner. And when we come to this board, I rely a lot on the commissioners from the areas that these things are going on and to give us the information coming back from those areas as to what the constituents or what the board sees as a priority. And that's why I said this is a very peculiar situation, because you got something in direct conflict. There hasn't been a vote from the board, if I'm stating it correctly, Mr. Chair, that says that they don't believe or that this is something that should be continue to be studied. And so I guess what I'm asking is not, I guess I was making a statement, but it's more so a question of, I just want to hear from Commissioner Merritt one more time, just your sentiments very clearly, if you can, on this project, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to take this home and answer to your constituents about what we've done.
I have no problem doing that. I personally, speaking for myself, have absolutely no problem with this whatsoever, and speaking as a parent whose daughter is going to be driving through that intersection. What I can relay from the board, a motion was made to pause the project. Motion did not get a second, and that was it. That was the end of that issue. The board did send a letter to the DOT asking them to reevaluate it, both for safety and geometric design. They did change the geometric design some by leaving it as an alternate that you can take the old route that goes now and bypass the intersection altogether if you want, whereas before that was a cul-de-sac. So I guess this board sent a letter to them asking them to look at it again. The school board sent a letter. They have looked at it. They have determined that this is the best way to do it. I trust them to know more about traffic design and safety than me or any other citizen. Nancy?
Thank you. Today we're being actually asked, our vote is just asked to put the Crawfordville Road onto the RMP.
All the segments, all the way from
And
Leon County
it doesn't
down.
really address design so much as it does just listing it on the RMP. Wanted to make sure I was very clear, I had that clear. What will happen next as far as procedure is concerned? All right, it's now in our RMP. Will you all continue to what is your public input process from this day forward, given the fact that we're probably going to put this particular road project on this RMP?
Well, for this particular section, the realignment, as it completes design, we'll have another public meeting. Then it'll move forward. The right-of-way is partially funded. The construction is scheduled for next year. So this realignment project is on its way to moving forward. The remainder of those segments, when and if they receive funding, they'll come to this board as part of the work program presentation every year. In fact, our work program staff will be presenting the work program at your January meeting. And at that time, we will discuss funding that has been placed on the subsequent segments of 319.
All right, so what's the opportunity? Is there any Collier County opportunity for input at this point, or is it all through CRTPA?
We do the public hearing portion of the work program, the meeting that will be held at the Midway office on December 2nd, I believe. Their staff's more than welcome to come out there and provide input or submit it through the CRTPA. And if the commission would like us to do a presentation, we'd be glad to go to Wakulla County and do a presentation.
All right, we had 3 more citizens sign up that want to speak while we were talking, so let's go ahead and do that. Howard? Dr. Kessler, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Howard Kessler, Crawfordville. I've been here before. I think that it's important to know that this project was not brought to the Board of County Commissioners until just recently. Meetings in 2007, from that time forward, for 6 years, it didn't come to the Board of County Commissioners. It never came to the Board of County Commissioners for discussion, for presentation. The intersection, why is this intersection needed to be done before all others? The board had prioritized its intersections. This was not one of them. Okay, I think that's a statement in itself. The accident rate at this skewed intersection that the FDOT is telling us they don't like skewed intersections, but compare that accident rate to 90-degree intersections that need to be improved, and you'll see there's not a problem there. So it may be a bad design, but it's working. We don't have a problem with the intersection. This is not just, when you use the term realignment, this is not a realignment in the sense of a lot of people think of it. This is moving. This is moving an intersection from a place where traffic flows freely now to in front of the school where it's not going to be flowing freely. There's going to be a stoplight. There's going to be a 90-degree turn that people are going to have to be making going south or north. So I think it's unfair to characterize the board having been in the loop on this development and progress of this intersection. I think moving more than 10,000 vehicle trips a day to be more in front of your high school is not the way to create safety. Thank you.
Julia Hanway.
My name is Julia Hanway Rivas. I lived at this intersection for 40 years. This intersection does not need improvement. This intersection is a safe intersection. I began the community traffic safety team a number of years ago. I invited Mr. Merritt to be on it at the time that I began the community traffic safety team, as well as a number of other people. Since the time that the sheriff and the school board that Mr. Merritt is talking about, we've changed. We have a different sheriff and we have a different school superintendent, and I believe that they are not in favor of this change to the intersection. This is a bad idea. Randy, Mr. Merritt and Mr. Barwick brought Mr. Moore to a community traffic safety team meeting a number of years ago, and he proposed to put this redirected traffic through his property so he could develop his property. This is the sole reason that this intersection is being changed. It is not being changed for safety's sake. At the time, everyone was very polite, listened to him. We talked about a traffic study. It has since, I think, been shown that the traffic study or the safety, it's a safe intersection. We had so many priorities for so many years that were at the top of the list. We had 3 deadly intersections that we had crash after crash with multiple deaths that have not been addressed. Those intersections are the intersections that should be being improved in Wakulla County, not this intersection. This intersection is going to create a major hazard to our students. My children went to Wakulla High School. I know this intersection. There is no reason that maybe a light would be useful at the current intersection, but to spend $6.5 million to reroute a currently safe intersection through someone's property just so they can develop it is not a good idea and not a good use of public money. Thank you.
David Damon.
Name and address for the record, please.
David Damon, 145 Posey Road, Crawfordville, Florida. I live right around the corner from this intersection. There's no safety issue here. There's only been 2 accidents over the last 5 years at this intersection, and they were fender benders, no fatalities. You heard the sole purpose of this is so a commissioner can develop his property. That seems to be all this is about. You've been misled. I just heard it a minute ago about how the school board superintendent supports this. Maybe the old one did. The sheriff, maybe the old one did. But right here, I started a petition with Mike Morgan at Mike's Paint and Body that's right there at the intersection. And the first 3 names on this petition are Bobby Pierce, school board superintendent, Michael Barwick, the principal of Wakulla High School, and Charlie Creel, the sheriff, current sheriff in Wakulla County. So the idea that you're being told that these people from past administrations are behind this, you're being misled. That's ludicrous. They are not. They do not support this. The petition reads, temporarily suspend its present activity on the realignment of the intersection at U.S. Highways 98 and 319 at Medard. Number 2, reevaluate the priority and design. Number 3, continue the evaluation for a traffic light in front of Wakulla High School with a focus on student and public safety. I urge you to put a stop to this madness that is happening here. We have 11,700 vehicles a day that come down 319 that bypass Wakulla High School. Why in the world would we want to turn that traffic right into the front of Wakulla High School? What common sense would dictate such a move? If anything, you'd be trying to develop it where it all bypassed the way it currently does. The idea, my son just graduated from Wakulla High School, and the idea of putting all that traffic right in front of an high school is totally absurd. Please reconsider this. Thank you.
Marianne?
I'm probably going to vote. I am going to vote against going forward with this, with all due respect to local county commissions. But we have a regional transportation planning committee for a reason. So I'm still kind of stuck back on DOT's effort to reach out to the community. You're going to have a public hearing in Midway, which is in Gadsden County, on a road in Wakulla County. Seems to me that is sort of an obstinate thing to do. I cannot believe that that's the best DOT can do to hear from the public.
The department takes its lead from the Wakulla County Board of County Commission. We've had numerous conversations with the elected officials.
And they voted to have a public hearing on that road in Gadsden County?
No, ma'am. This is the annual public hearing we have for the development of the work program is what I was specifically referring to. If they would like us to come down and present to them, all they need to do is ask.
By they, you mean?
The Board of County Commissioners.
The County Commission.
And as far as, references to names being on a petition, District Secretary Tommy Barfield has met with the current sheriff, with the current superintendent, and with the current principal. And as of today, we've not received a specific request from any of those individuals to stop this project.
Did they confirm their support?
I think, like many, they wanted additional information, and we have or are in the process of providing that information to them.
I'm just going to say I'm not a big fan of the way the communications worked out here for a lot of the reasons that we've talked about. It seems like there's a lot of information that, but the reality is this organization's designed to kind of be the vetting point for a lot of that. And I'm not a road engineer, and I don't want to be a road engineer, and I have found in my limited experience here that everybody seems to think, well, this is the way it ought to get done. And oftentimes common sense doesn't work. So I'm going to assume for this that y'all know what you're doing. I can tell you, though, I drive that weekend, that road just about every weekend and have for the last 30 years, and my wife had an accident there about 6 or 8 years ago. So it's to say that it's accident-free is a little bit of a stretch, just like, and we're starting to parse words. I'd like to ask, so if y'all don't mind, I mean, I think the commission would be wise to at least have some kind of public hearing, but it'd be nice if there's things that y'all outline, like here are the safety issues that we've addressed relative to the students, here are the people that we've talked to, having that in some format so that the majority of the people here get it in all one final answer. Because I think what happens is you've got a lot of he said, she said here, and we can listen to one side and say, well, that doesn't sound right. And then you say, well, wait a minute, well, that's really only part of the story. And unfortunately, a lot of the public doesn't oftentimes get much beyond the headline because they're not, a lot of the public doesn't want to go to public hearings and things like that. So if there's a way, and I guess I'll just end on this, if there's a way to somehow communicate some of the pertinent information out, I think it'd be great. Just even if it were a letter to the editor, hey, here's what DOT's done on these.
We can request a workshop.
Yeah.
Howard's
We'd be more
here,
happy to.
and he hears me saying this. He'll hold me to it, that you guys come give a presentation on intersection to the public. Wants to come
And answer their questions, because I think that's
Right.
I think a lot of the questions are, why was this one done first? I know the answers to the questions, but the general public may not. Why was this done before blocks and cut off? Why this? Why that? I'll agree to do that and get those
I'll
questions
just
answered.
submit the request. We'll be glad to come down and do the
But
presentation.
I would like to move forward with the issue because this covers from Leon County to 98, and all we've talked about is one intersection. I want to talk about the rest of the road. Chris?
Well, that was going to be my question. It was following on where Commissioner Miller was a little while ago. The way I've read this, this particular item is to add this one intersection to the other, or to be one of the 7 projects?
No.
Or this is the entire segment, all 7 projects? Okay.
This is all 7 segments.
Okay, that's how I read it first last week. So, okay, I'm glad I was on the right track first. So with that, I think, like some of the others have said, I want to be accommodating to individual counties. I mean, we all want to represent our counties, hear from constituents, things of that nature. But I would echo Commissioner Deloge's comments, and I think you're hearing it, Commissioner or Mr. Chair, for one more day.
A couple more hours, actually.
A couple hours, there you go. That more dialogue in Wakulla sounds like, a good idea, and to try to think through this. Adding this piece. Approving this item today doesn't lock us in, doesn't lock you all in or us into one alignment or another. These are all 7 segments.
We don't design
of work
roads.
of work on 98, and it sounds like there is some agreement that work needs to be done at some portions, at some locations, and things like that. Is that correct?
And I think the last time this came up, when Dr. Kessler came, I said, I'm not approving any gym design. I want to keep something needs to be done at that intersection. Now, is that the priority for moving traffic in Wakulla County? No, it's not. We start north and work south, but there's a reason that one was funded above the other ones, and I'll let them explain that to the citizens.
So my question is this: where are the next decision points in this? And I think some of the others were getting to this as well. Does it come back to us? Will these folks have another opportunity to speak about the specific construction of this, the specific realignment of this intersection, or with our action today, is it a done deal? I think that's important, because what I'm hearing from some of the others is, there might be some concern, Commissioner Lindley's point, about the specific realignment, but I'm leaning towards approving it because it's the entire stretch. But I am curious where that additional communication and decision points might come out.
No, this doesn't lock you into that. I guess the next step would this be was us reviewing the tentative work program, of which this will be part of that as well as other segments of it. This action is only to put us in a position to make the funding available, or federal funding available, eligibility, to be able to begin the widening of 319 and the segments that are not there.
And as my understanding, it also puts us in a position, if they come up with another pot of money left over from South Florida, since now that we're on this list, it'd be easier for us to get that funded once the designs are done.
And should the community decide not to realign the intersection, maybe to put in a light where it is currently, that is, I'm just saying hypothetically, that's all within this scope as well. That is, the Wakulla County can keep talking about this. Is that correct?
It's typically, in essence, I think it's a separate project. I think, Brian needs to address it from that standpoint. But let me say this about my history with this is, going back from the time that I was here, that one of the issues that we tried to deal with has always been the widening of 319. And so I've met with the Board of County Commissioners on a number of occasions to say, what can we do? Because the project itself was over $200 million, the way it was originally segmented. And so what we tried to say is, what improvements can we make? And they said the intersections. So we worked with the county commission to identify the intersections. At that point, the priorities that were set were to go from the north to the south. This project has apparently started in about 1996, is originally when it was beginning to do, and it was moving along separately. And then at one time there wasn't any money, and so it kind of fell by the wayside, and then it came back up again. Essentially, my understanding of what's happened, because I worked with the county as well to bring DOT down to look at the current intersection about the possibility of a traffic light there. They evaluated it and found that they didn't have warrants to put it at that particular location at that time, and that's why. And there was a request from I believe the sheriff and the principal, as well as the school superintendent, to try to get a traffic light there because they were concerned about the school and the speeds there. So that's been the history of this type of thing. My understanding is, based on what I've seen, is the county, there was correspondence back and forth with DOT about this intersection, and they did indicate that, we relisted the priorities. What the position of DOT is that, if you don't accept this or want this intersection or realignment, then we're going to take the money and move it elsewhere. So the question,
for that one piece, not for
that
the
one
entire
piece,
section of 319.
Right, that was just that one piece. They had the money available. It was construction funds. The discussions were held with DOT to ask them whether this could be moved to other intersections. They said no, because they didn't have the PD&Es or design or anything else done with any of the other intersections. And as you may recall, I put, I think, about $600,000 aside 4 or 5 years ago to try to address one of the intersections, which was Wakulla Aaron's Road. And so that was part of this discussion as well. But again, that was insufficient funds to do that. None of the design or PD&Es had been done on those particular intersections. All the work had already been done on it. The opportunity came up. They had the money. That's where DOT decided that they wanted to try to move forward with it. So that's kind of the history, that at least my involvement in this.
We'll do Doug, then
Yes.
Nick. Well, it sounds like y'all need to come to the workshop, too.
Okay. Well, I only want to say to you that I'm a property owner in Wakulla County, not far down 98, as well as also in Franklin County on the other end. So I'm familiar with the intersection. I want to support you and intend to support your position on this matter as with your personal knowledge. I do, however, applaud you for requesting that this meeting be moved to Wakulla County. Holding a meeting like this in Gadsden County makes no sense to me, and it should be down where the people are, because if half of what is being represented here is true, there's reason to vent this in a more local form and air this out. And if there's any improprieties going on, that's going to come out as well. So, thank you.
If half of this that we're hearing is true, there's reason to vent this in a local forum. Commissioner Crowley just said that, and I tell you, I'm wondering what the sense of urgency is as far as us doing this today. Is there one, Harry? I mean, could we possibly, postpone action until? I don't even know how fast a workshop could happen, but could it happen prior to our next CRTPA meeting? We take this back up again, or where are we in the process here?
I want to express upon you that this is not specifically related to the intersection project.
Right.
This is just setting up the position, and we can ask FHWA. It follows the planning consistency requirements from FHWA to make the whole segment from where it ends right now for the 4 lanes all the way down to US 98, does the reevaluation and brings that into the long-range plan and says, okay, now we can be able to set ourselves up to be eligible for federal funding.
Again, I'm not asking that question. I'm asking about the sense of urgency we have here today. I understand exactly where you come from, and this embodies the whole road. But I guess what I'm trying to say to you is that if there's a chance for us to take this up again after the workshop and it not harm anything.
What's your concerns, Nick? You say if half of it's true, what?
Well, I don't know. I'm not a Wakulla commissioner. My concern is the process through the vetting process of it all. I don't know what's true and what's not. You're there every day. You know better than I do. And so my thing was, I believe even in Leon County, if there's a possibility that things hadn't been fully vetted to a point to where even some of my commissioners are comfortable, and I got another chance to get it vetted, I'll get it vetted. That's why I said, if we don't do it today, what happens? Because I'm not willing to risk the whole roadway on extra vetting. But if there's a possibility that this workshop could happen prior to us having this approval and we just postpone action, I'm willing to entertain that thought. That's why my question is what it is.
I believe there is another opportunity for that, and that's when the work program comes before us from the DOT, of which the project would be part of. And that will be in January.
So we could possibly postpone and take it back up?
Well, again, this is a separate issue.
Okay.
We're not addressing the
this just makes it eligible for funding. The funding issue is when DOT says that they're programming money for these particular projects, and I will let Brian think.
Commissioner Maddox, to answer your question, yes, it would impact, because we've tentatively programmed additional funds for the northern segments of US 319. If the CRTPA does not feel that it's appropriate to put this in their regional mobility plan, we would have to look other places to put this funding.
Well, look, like I said before, I'm hesitantly going to support it. It's not even a thing against you, Commissioner Merritt, or the commission. It's just a process. To have people come, more than one, and even commissioners come and say this thing, the vetting process hasn't been what they thought it should have been, it just troubles me. And then the idea of the whole Gadsden meeting and not having something happen or workshop in Wakulla, those are all things that just kind of, they give me some pause. I am going to support it because I don't want to jeopardize the whole roadway for it, but I'm interested to see as we move through the process if we could do a little more vetting in Wakulla when we come back for the things that we're talking about, the rest of the process for our design and things of that nature is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy?
Well, it seems to me that this has gone forward to way down the road to the point where construction is next year without being on our RMP. So all we do, if we vote against this today, is to exclude the entire rest of the roadway. I don't see that voting against this today is going to have an impact on the work that's going on down there. And so tell me if I'm wrong. But with that, I'd like to call the question.
I've been begging and pleading for years to get this whole road on the list, if y'all remember correctly. All right, we're going to go ahead and vote.
All right. I
Everybody called
appreciate
the
you're doing the
question.
workshop.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call. It's a roll call? We're calling the question? We're calling the question second. Okay.
Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
Commissioner Madison?
Aye.
Commissioner Merritt?
Aye.
Commissioner Crowley?
Aye.
Commissioner Deloge?
Aye.
Commissioner Dozier?
Aye.
Commissioner Lindley?
Aye.
Commissioner Nick Maddox?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor?
Got to vote, Bill.
Yes.
Okay. And Commissioner Miller?
Was that me?
Yes.
Did you vote?
Yes.
Announce the vote.
Okay.
It passes.
Yes, 10 yeas, 0 noes.
We didn't put no. And I think that
Okay.
needs to answer some of those questions, yeah.
Passes what?
Should have had
10 yeas.
0, okay.
I don't want to torpedo the whole road.
No, but in fairness,
Um,
have the questions answered. Yeah.
Next item.
Next item.
Next item is 4B2, and this is to amend the long-range transportation plan, RMP, to include or move forward the Magnolia Drive sidewalk. Again, this puts you in position to be eligible for federal funding.
Second.
I'm not sure if I want to vote for this.
And a quick comment.
This is modified.
Can we put this off till next meeting?
Roll call vote.
I got to just quick, we all heard from people, there were letters to the editor, we had people here. How do we communicate back out that we are moving forward with this so that we can kind of maybe calm the waters a little bit? Is there a way, Harry, that we can kind of get the word out?
Brian, I'm sorry. I think we're doing that.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. In our shop then, out of John Brown's group? Okay. I just don't, what'll happen is we'll continue to get phone calls, where are you, what's going on? And I think I'd rather be a little bit more proactive about it. So, okay.
Do you mind if I jump in on that?
Yeah, I think it's got motion in a second, yeah.
You've already done it?
Yeah.
Motion, so yeah, we have a motion in a
I
second.
didn't hear it. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, were you finished?
Yeah, I'm done, thank you.
Just to follow up on that point, all I was going to say was that I attended the public meeting in Indian Head last Thursday. There's about 30 or so people there. Great discussion. Planning Department, city and county staff were there. I know Tony Park, Gabe, others, and Wayne, they did a great job. And we fielded a lot of questions. My sense of what the questions from the crowd were, we just want more. We want everything. Yeah. But they were really excited with the 800,000 plus that we're getting from CRTPA, and this vote kind of affirms that with the move, right? We've got to award a contract by June. So one news crew was there. They picked it up. But I think, from all the people I've heard of in those neighborhoods who have been the most vocal, they were at the meeting. Okay. So I think the message is getting out, and I just wanted to go on record and say thanks to the staff for a great moving and moving this forward so quickly. And our blueprint meeting, I think, is going to help with additional funding.
There was a question if there was a motion, Mary Ann. They were falling over each other to make a motion on it.
Yes,
so, yes,
they
we
were.
got one. Nancy, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are a couple things I want to get on the record here. You know that the city in our budget had allocated $1 million to this project. But it's very important for you to understand that the city residents are also paying from $4.2 to $4.8 million to move the utilities in advance of this project. I think that's real important to be clear. So when we get to our blueprint meeting and we start talking about funding, I'm going to be advocating for more money somehow to cover some of that cost, because that puts us up at $5.8 million of investment on a county road, which I'm more than happy to do. But be aware that we're going to be talking about that, because that's a pretty stiff cost on the utilities.
We're on the CRA.
We'll just use the county tax to pay for the rest of the sidewalk. How about that?
Thank you.
The sales tax, blueprint, Yeah.
All right, we got a motion and a second. I think this one will pass. It's a roll call vote.
Roll call. Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
Commissioner Madison.
Aye.
Commissioner Merritt.
Aye.
Commissioner Crowley.
Aye.
Commissioner Deloge.
Aye.
Commissioner Dozier.
Aye.
Commissioner Lindley.
Aye.
Commissioner Nick Maddox. Commissioner Proctor. Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 noes.
I think it passed. Harry?
Next item is 5A, the election of chair and vice chair for next year. Yeah, we need to set up nominations.
Make a motion?
Well,
Go
when we
ahead.
get started, yeah, you're gonna. So we're nominating vice chair. We've already got
Chair, and then
Vote.
vice.
the incoming chair is my chair, and I would nominate her. Do I do the vice chair in the same motion?
If you wish, and we
And
want to carry it all at once.
if I can double up here, there's somebody who's not here today. She happens to be the quietest among us, but I think it's time Betsy Barfield might get a spot in the limelight. So, with the board's permission, I'd nominate, if we can do them together, my chair rolling over as the incoming chair here, and then Betsy Barfield.
Is anybody going to second that motion?
And I second it.
Okay.
Motion-
Traditionally, it would have been the city in line next, but
Right.
But as you see, there's just me, and I'm more than happy to let Betsy do it.
And I move nominations cease.
okay. Any more discussion? All for the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Pass,
Thank
that
you.
passed too. Can she sit over here now or
Huh?
next
No,
meeting?
no,
You still
I
got
get
another
I get
hour.
to start in January. It's a calendar year deal. Next item on the agenda is 5B, and this is a resolution in support of designating US 90 as a national bike route. And we have Dave Lee here from the Florida Department of Transportation, who's kind of moving this project forward to give you a little overview of what this involves. Dave?
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you very much. I'll try and be brief. I just have a few slides that will give you a little bit more orientation and background about what this thing is, the U.S. bicycle route system. Probably the only person I can think of who's more passionate about this system than I am could be Harry Reid. Harry has been encouraging me for the past year that we need to move ahead with this, and I'm here today to share with you what we're up to. I'm just going to, total of 10 slides here. I'm going to just give you a little bit of background on the system, what we've done to date, and some next steps. So regarding background, there's a national organization called the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, or AASHTO, the acronym. They've maintained records for U.S. numbered systems, and that goes all the way back to 1926 when they started U.S. numbered highways. A lot of people think that system is associated with federal aid. It's not. It's not a federal aid system. It was just state departments of transportation getting together and saying, if we're going to have route numbers for people getting across the country, we probably ought to set up some committee to do that. And they did that back in the 20s. When the interstate highway system began in 1956, the numbering of that system was also managed, maintained by, at that time it was called AASHTO. It was a highway organization, so they added transportation to the name in 73. I'm going to slip in a few personal notes. Personal note is I actually worked for AASHTO from 1975 to 1988. Then we moved to Florida. The best thing my wife and I, best decision we ever made was to move to Tallahassee in 1988. And in 1979, while I worked at AASHTO, AASHTO was progressing on, considering other than highways, and they adopted a purpose and policy on U.S. numbered bicycle routes in 1979. So further background, in 1982, 3 years later, the first U.S. bicycle routes were adopted. U.S. Bicycle Route 1, simply going from North Carolina and Virginia. U.S. Bicycle Route 76, going across Virginia, Kentucky, Illinois. So those 4 states were the first ones to kick off the U.S. bicycle route system. And for about the next 20 years, nothing else happened. In 2003, and I'm going to credit some bicycle advocacy groups, suggested that AASHTO form a task force and invite some non-DOT people to be on that task force. There's a group called the Adventure Cycling Association. I'll give them the major credit for helping to bring that about. And then in 2008, a few years later, they endorsed a national corridor plan. I'll show you a slide here to show you what that plan is. And then in 2010, a couple years after that, we had the finally, almost 30 years later, the next U.S. bicycle route designations. Since that time, since 2010, there's been several additions. We now have 15 states that have adopted portions of U.S. bicycle route system, not counting Florida, and some 6,790 miles. So this next slide, you won't be able to see the detail, but similar to like the interstate system, at least there is a map put together. These lines represent corridors, 50-mile wide corridors, if you will. So looking down along the coast of Florida, this map did not say where U.S. Bicycle Route 1 should be located in Florida, just said somewhere kind of in the general vicinity, probably of U.S. Highway 1. But we'll leave that up to the states and those that they work with to determine the specific routes. The lines, if you can see those that are a little darker, are those where routes have been adopted. So again, just 15 states. So the key actions, in our case, the Florida Department of Transportation, 3 years ago, we adopted a policy saying we need to do our part on this system. That policy, I think, is in your agenda packet. We also, at that same time, we're working on some additions to our plans preparation manual to say, well, if we select these routes, what are some general criteria for that? And then last year, speaking at a meeting, I kind of stuck my neck out and said, well, you know, there's no reason that we can't accomplish this within the next 2 years. Kind of following a model that Michigan had adopted, U.S. Bicycle Route 35, and that took them about 2 years. Well, we've done better than that. So this year, we have an opportunities twice a year, I should mention, just like all the way back to that U.S. numbered highway system. We're still modifying that system. Last year, we submitted a change to U.S. Highway 1. So it's not a system that gets locked in. You know, as we build additional facilities or routes change, largely, you know, with the introduction of the interstate system, some of the U.S. numbered highway system was replaced in some cases by interstate routes. So I just want to emphasize that what we've submitted at the beginning of October just should be viewed as a starting point. In fact, something unique about the applications, we've submitted 2 applications, one for U.S. Bicycle Route 1. You'll see on the slide 584 miles going from Key West to the Georgia line, and U.S. Bicycle Route 90 going 424 miles. Not from the beginning of U.S. Route 90 in Jacksonville, but rather down around St. Augustine over to Pensacola, so across the Panhandle, 424 miles. Something unique about our application that I hope we'll build upon is we didn't just submit a U.S. Bicycle Route 90, we also had a segment over in Pensacola for an alternate route. Why I think that's really important is that we have lots of other facilities that maybe the most direct route might be from point A to point B, but maybe if you're a cyclist and you want to take in a nice ride, say like St. Mark's Trail or something, that there might be an alternate route that departs from that route. So we'll see how that goes. This will be the first state to make an application which includes an alternate route. Okay, and we submit this is just one of the maps. I think there's 7 or 8. Happen to pick out page 4 out of that. This is a small scale, but just showing where that would come through Tallahassee. So unlike the other routes, that signing is a very important part. There's no requirement to sign these routes. In general, cyclists, I think, would tend to prefer maps and logs, turn by turn, if you will. So in addition to the map, we do have a turn-by-turn log of both routes, US 90, US Bicycle Route 1. And I just want to slip in this example too, US 1. Most of you, I'm sure, would be familiar that we have A1A, an alternate. Well, most of US Bicycle Route 1 will be traveling over A1A rather than US 1. And as far as next steps, the U.S. Route Numbering Committee will meet this Thursday. Again, I want to be thanks to Harry. Harry's already signed a letter that went with our application, and I know he's pointed out that we submitted the application in between your last meeting and this meeting. So if you do want to consider the resolution favorably today, I'll make sure that gets added to our packet. And thank you very much for considering it. And this Thursday is when the action will take place on these two routes. I'll be going to Charlotte, North Carolina, not exclusively for this event, but it definitely will be an event that I'll be watching. We have a web page that on the Florida DOT. It's a long address there. I tested this out, but you can just Google Florida DOT USBR, and you'll see this page. It'll give you the full applications and keep you informed as we go on. One of the things we're also planning to do, we have experts with GIS and mapping, and so when we've designated our routes, we're looking at shoulder widths and so on, and so we'll be putting shape files onto our web page, so cyclists would be able to actually look and see what different shoulder widths they would encounter. These are not like your routes. These are not intended to be routes that you would take your children and go for a nice afternoon ride. These are more for touring routes for cyclists who are comfortable riding with traffic, and so they're not exclusive facilities. And my last personal comment is I do aspire to ride U.S. Bicycle Route 90, and had hoped to do that in November. It doesn't look like that's going to work out, but and maybe both routes. We'll see. I'll do one first and then the other. Thank you very much for your time. I'd like to
Something
entertain
told me
any
Kristen
questions.
was going to have a question, but remember when you're chairperson, you can't ask any more questions. Go ahead.
I can ask them at the end. I learned that this year, right? As my commission laughs heartily, right? Yes, thank you.
Vacation now and then.
Yeah, I do. All right, forgive us there for a second. Apparently, I do ask a lot of questions, but I think this is great. I, for one, like the history lesson, so thank you very much. That was fascinating. I'm just curious, as the technology moves forward, if you've seen any of the other states or here in Florida of some of the maybe the bike groups themselves or others working to integrate different types of maps for bike routes. I mean, I know that you all are focused on the designated bike routes or the designated alternates, and that's great, but here we've got the Trailahassie website where we've integrated a lot of information about bike routes. We will keep laying around more. So are you seeing that those kind of mapping tools come together with some of these groups?
Absolutely.
Great.
Found out when I was checking with our colleagues in Michigan that there's a gentleman in Michigan who is actually taking it upon himself, lots of entrepreneurial work here, to take the routes as they're adopted by the states and put those into Google Maps. So if you can find that, he's done that. And then the Adventure and Cycling Group is actually, they met with us, and they're using a mapping technique. I've forgotten the technical name. It's out there in sort of the share world. So the technology is increasing even on our own end. So I think as we are looking forward to advancing, not just putting the line on the map, but providing additional information so cyclists will be able to get that and see, okay, I need to, there might be a little segment here, where we don't have a 4-foot shoulder in, I think maybe over like some areas like Defuniak Springs or some areas. And so if we have to wait till we have the ideal world. We'll probably never get there, but that I think the technology is going to play a large role in advancing what we do.
That's great. Well, thank you. And that is my only question, other than if you now hear from Doug that we don't like bikes and we like ports better, don't believe him.
I never would have.
Some of us do and some of us don't.
Go ahead, Doug.
Question. Thank you for your presentation. Very good job. What is this going to cost?
What's it going to cost? Zero. Yeah.
Okay. Is it going to be a distraction?
In fact, I enjoyed, there's a person here in Florida who writes at the national level and actually kind of did a article that criticized our actions on this, and I called him up. We had a nice call, and the next month he retracted his statement and said this is a good thing.
Even Doug will support this, I think.
Well, I don't mind supporting naming and have somebody doing up a map, but for the first time, and thanks again to this group here, we have local roads that have had paved shoulders added that is providing the bike lanes for recreation and family use, and we're also now having a project between Quincy and Havana, again, to provide the bike lanes. And my concern is I don't have a problem with what you're proposing to do. I just wanted to make sure it's not going to turn into a distraction from those efforts where we know that people are riding their bicycles. US 90, I'm very familiar with, and seems like to me that would be a high-risk endeavor, but whatever. I just wanted to make sure about the costs.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Is there a motion? Second. Any more discussion? All for the motion? Aye. Motion passes. Next item.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Next item is 5C, and this is a discussion to approve the resolution to consolidate the transportation disadvantaged coordinating boards in the 4 counties.
I move
This
option 1.
Second.
Second it, yeah.
Okay, any more discussion? All for the motion? Aye. Motion passed.
Next item is briefing on the 2040 Regional Mobility Plan update. We have Artie White here. Okay. Yeah, it'll take a few minutes, yeah.
You're in charge there.
All this work.
Okay.
So do I.
What do we want to do while Randy's gone?
Presentation.
Please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Artie White with Kimley Horn. I'm going to give an update on the 2040 Regional Mobility Plan. Just kind of want to talk first about where we are in the process. We're really at this pivot point where we're concluding the existing conditions, the visioning, and really kind of pivoting over to now working on the needs, the financial analysis, and actually doing the evaluation of projects. So with that, if you go to the link that was provided in your agenda packet or just go to the project website, connections2040rmp.com, the existing conditions report is available for your review. There's actually 2 documents. One is the existing conditions report for the regional mobility plan. There's also an existing conditions report for the transit development plan. That is a part that is occurring concurrently with the regional mobility plan. So you can actually review both documents. If you have comments, they can come directly to me, or if you provide those to CRTPA staff, they'll make sure they get to me, and we can address those. I want to spend more time talking about where we go from here. We're trying to find ways to make sure that the regional mobility plan is responsive and actually reflects the needs of the CRTPA communities now and in 5 years. And so we have a couple of ways to do that. First, I want to talk about the evaluation criteria. We will be coming back to you in January with evaluation criteria for you to review. But just so you know the direction that we're heading and to provide feedback to me now if it's not the direction you want, we started off with the CRTPA board retreat in April, actually. And at that point, we developed a series of goals for the project. Those are also available on the website. Those goals were taken to the committees and then approved by this board in May. We then held a series of public workshops, and the point of those workshops was really to hear the values of the communities. And we had workshops in each of the 4 counties in the CRTPA region, and we didn't want to start off just talking about projects initially. We wanted to make sure that the projects that come out of this plan were responsive to the community values, and so that's why we started that way. We followed that up in October with another series of workshops where we looked at community preferences. This included an activity that was kind of mimicked at the CRTPA board retreat in October, where we looked at community preferences and really started the discussion on prioritization criteria. Then this presentation I'm giving now was actually taken to the committees earlier this month. Just some terminology before we get into it. We talk about planning tiers. What is meant by planning tiers is 5-year increments into which we put the projects of the Regional Mobility Plan. And one difference from the previous time is Tier 1 is actually the TIP. And so that basically sets Tier 1, and all the rest of the projects will fall into Tiers 2, 3, 4, and 5.
So Tier 1 means it's in the 5-year work plan.
Yes. One of the things that we want to make sure we do with this Regional Mobility Plan is really focus on implementation. There's a couple of ways of doing that. One is when we talk about a project, there's usually several phases to that project. There's a PD&E, then there's design, then there's right-of-way sometimes, and then there's construction. And so each project will generally follow that series of phases. And so one of the things we want to make sure we do is we stagger these projects. So as one project moves from PD&E into design, another project begins the PD&E. And then as that first project moves from design into construction, the next project that was in PD&E then moves into design. That way there's always a project moving through the pipeline. We don't get held up where we have a bunch of environmental studies done or we're doing PD&Es for a bunch of studies and don't see any projects actually being implemented for a series of years. So we really want to make sure that we focus on implementation. And there is one added benefit to this. That is the state and the feds have a tendency to reward communities that actually get things done. So if additional funding becomes available, we want to make sure that we look like a community that gets things done so we are in line to get that funding. We've received a couple of questions about, do all projects have to be major construction projects? I just want to say, to clarify any questions, that TDM and ITS strategies are always considered as the first step. This is consistent with our congestion management plan, so we're consistent with that. And also, transit and aviation projects are going to be prioritized based on those different agencies' plans. As I mentioned, the transit development plan is being developed concurrently with the regional mobility plan. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot about transit and aviation, but those will be a part of the overall regional mobility plan. At the board retreat, there was a lot of discussion on planning flexibility. And so we want to talk about some of the strategies that we've come up with based on that conversation and the direction that we're heading. One is to separate projects and funding by mode. As it was done previously, it was basically a list of all projects. And now we want to make sure that we put roadway projects on one list, bicycle and pedestrian projects on another list, your transit projects or aviation projects on another list. There's really two reasons for doing this. One is it enables us to develop evaluation criteria specific to that mode. So we're not trying to compare sidewalks and roadways using the same criteria because those are very different kinds of projects. The other reason is it makes it a lot easier to understand. If funding comes in and it's only able to be used on a roadway project, and you look at your list and maybe your first roadway project is number 45 on the list, you don't get the question, why are you funding project number 45 instead of 1 through 44? Well, by breaking it into mode, we don't have to worry about having a bunch of ineligible projects for a specific type of funding coming before that one project. So the idea is make it easier to understand, make it easier to manage, and have evaluation criteria specific to each mode. The other thing we're looking at is when we put projects into these tiers, we will essentially prioritize all projects and then put them into tiers. But once they're in that tier, they become equal. So if you have a list of 15 projects in one tier of of the plan, you can move those around. And the reason is, as a community moves forward over the next 5 years, things may come up, a safety concern may come up, and we want to have the flexibility to address that safety concern immediately. I'm not talking about moving projects from one tier to another tier, but within that tier, all projects will be equal, and you can put money toward what you can get accomplished first. We're also looking at considering bicycle and pedestrian projects a little differently than we have in the past. We don't have a specific cutoff yet. We will come back to you in January with this, but we're looking at separating large projects from small projects within that bicycle and pedestrian list. The idea is if you have something like the Capital City of the Sea Trails, those are some very long segments and can be fairly expensive projects. And if you look at funding small pieces like a sidewalk gap, you'd never get enough funding to accomplish the Capital City of the Sea Trails. But if we only put money toward the Capital City of the Sea Trails or projects like that, then you would never be able to fund the small sidewalk gaps. So what we're proposing is separating a separate box of funds specifically for small-scale projects, and then the large-scale projects would go into those tiers like all the other types of projects. So that also provides a little bit of flexibility in terms of being able to respond to community needs and say there's a sidewalk gap here, let's put some of this funding toward that without it being tied up all in one box of funds. The reason we're wanting to look at this flexibility is a couple different reasons. One is you can only change the evaluation criteria during an RMP update. So basically you can't change the criteria every year without going through a pretty major undertaking. So we want to build flexibility into the evaluation criteria now so it serves the communities over the next 5 years. That doesn't mean that we can't reevaluate projects against that same criteria. That can be done on an annual basis. But what it requires us to do is have good evaluation criteria now and let that criteria work over the next 5 years. The way we're looking at dividing up modes of transportation so we can have that mode-specific evaluation criteria are basically roadways, bicycle, pedestrian, and then the transit and aviation based on those agency plans. And there's been some discussion about bicycle and pedestrian being treated separately, but it gets a little confusing when you have something like a shared use path that really serves both purposes. So we want to make sure that we have a balance of bicycle and pedestrian and shared use within that mode of transportation. But we also want to make sure that it's clear that we're not completely separating bicycle and pedestrian projects from roadway projects either. If a roadway project has a bicycle or pedestrian component to it, that will still be tied into that one larger project that's a roadway project. So we want to try to make sure that we accomplish bike ped projects as we're accomplishing roadway projects too. As far as the evaluation criteria, these are just kind of overarching themes and things that we're looking at. Again, we're coming back in January with the specific evaluation criteria. But what we're looking at is for all modes, a couple different things. One is, is the project a part of a current locally adopted plan? That really tells us that, hey, this project is one of our community's priorities. And so projects that are in a locally adopted plan would rank higher than projects that are not included in a locally adopted plan. One of the parts of this project, the Regional Mobility Plan, that we've been working with each county on is developing a transportation strategy. The counties and the cities don't have to adopt those per se, but that is one way of getting these projects into this criteria is if the county adopts the county transportation strategy that's developed as part of this plan, then they would get the points. Another question that we're kind of looking at and still trying to figure out is a funding commitment. So if a local government puts money toward a project, will it rank higher than projects that the local government does not put money into it? So essentially, does the local government have a little bit of skin in the game? We want to be careful with this because we do understand that some of the rural counties don't necessarily have as much funding to do that. So we're looking at options in terms of what about in-kind matching, or if the county can dedicate some right-of-way to the project, or something of that nature. Will that satisfy this? So we're still working this one out, but I just want you to know that this is something that we're chewing on, and we'll come back in January with more details on that.
I'm calling you anyway. I know you're going to ask a question.
Oh, wait.
Is the project in a growth area or economic development area? Essentially, most local governments have an enterprise zone, or, for example, Wakulla County has done the Crawfordville Town Plan. That's one way of defining growth area or economic development area. So projects within those areas would rank higher. Social and environmental impacts, of course, we want to minimize negative impacts as much as possible. And also cost effectiveness, comparing the cost to the benefit that you get from the projects. The greater benefit for the lower cost would rank higher. For roadways specifically, we're looking at, does the project improve efficiency? And that's basically, does this project reduce the vehicle miles traveled? That would be how that criteria would work. Does it improve travel reliability? Does it improve safety? Does it support freight priorities? Does it support transit service? Again, bicycle and pedestrian mobility. A lot of roadway projects will have that component built into it. And so these criteria would make these projects basically evaluate higher than other projects. For bicycle and pedestrian, does the project improve safety? Is it supportive of transit service? Does it connect to existing and planned facilities? And this is one that we wanted to balance connecting to existing and planned facilities to activity centers and expanding the network, because we realize that some rural counties don't have facilities to connect to. The next steps, we'll come back to you in January with more details. So with that, thanks.
Thank you. I want to thank the highly motivated individuals that attended the retreat. One time Nancy was the only city representative there, so we were able to push her around pretty good.
Wow.
Scott, he came, but he had to leave. Go ahead.
I was going to say the same thing, Mr. Chair, so thank you for doing that. I think the preparation from the retreat from you guys was wonderful. I like the way we're breaking down the list now, but I was just wondering if you could mention, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but we had talked about, you all had talked about the language we use for moving things around on the tip. That's a piece of discussion that comes up for us all the time. And there's a way to do it, like we did it with Magnolia, and there's a way that we can't do it.
Yes.
Can you just, I mean, I'm
Nick had
sorry.
suggested having a, for lack of a better word, a training session. I remember you were talking about how these tiers are related, and this gentleman here was very helpful in explaining it to us.
Yeah. And I think having a training session, folding it into our meetings like those of us who were at the retreat talked about, I think all of that is great. And if it's, I just didn't think there was overlapping groups. So I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that language of when we can modify. You tell me exactly what the language was, because I was missing the terminology.
Modification.
Yeah.
Modification and amendment.
Okay. So we can do a modification
easily
within moving something within the list.
Yes.
But an amendment is what we cannot do until we go back through the process.
Not rehashing the whole thing.
Right. And there was a presentation given on the MPO process at the board retreat, and it's actually available for anyone who wants to look at it on the project website, so connections2040rmp.com. If you click on documents, at the top of the page, it'll say board retreat as one of the options, and the presentation that we gave, as well as the presentation that Harry gave on the MPO process, are available to download and look at.
The one we did earlier on Crawfordville Road was a modification.
Right, and Magnolia as well, correct? Yeah.
That's
Okay.
a key point.
That's great. Thank you. It just, that keeps coming back up at this table. So I suppose as chair, we'll talk about Vice Chair with Harry and everyone when we might add some of those things into our regular agendas, because that's what we had kind of decided at the board retreat, right, was that we'd rather have it folded into some of the agenda material instead of a special meeting. Is that correct?
I think we can probably do that as part of the, evaluation criteria discussion that we have in January.
I was Harry, a good hard question and answer period for this gentleman would be very helpful, I think.
Yeah, and I think January would be helpful. And the only other thing I was going to say was thanks for giving a nod to the rural communities, because I know that was something we talked about at the retreat.
Good thing I was there.
Yeah, I think I brought it up before you, just saying. The in-kind, I like the in-kind contribution, the right-of-way contribution, those types of things. I'm really glad we're going in that direction instead of just monetary contribution. So thank you.
We heard you loud and clear.
Yes. Thank you. Well, I have two comment. First of all, Commissioner Richardson is going to be on the MPO in January, so this is going to be real timely in the fact that he's going to come in and begin to participate at a time when we're beginning to have more and more in-depth conversations about various things.
School board member coming in? Strickland? Is that her name?
Wow, that's a question.
It'll be the same time.
Yeah, I need to get with the school board so they can take the action they need to take.
She's very interested too. So
She was at the retreat. Is she a voting member?
School board.
I mean, when
she will be. She'll take it.
She would be if they designate her as the representative.
Okay.
All right. My question was this: it says part of a locally adopted plan. I'm assuming that means blueprint. Anything that is on the sales tax list, that would be a locally adopted plan.
Or other plans we might come up
with
others,
but I just want to make sure, and actually, thank you, Commissioner Dozier, because anything that we do needs to be on here. So please help us to make sure that happens. And but I was specifically interested in the projects that are on the blueprint sales tax list, and we're going to have a discussion about that when we get to 5F.
And is there any clarification, just to kind of dovetail on that, what level of sophistication the plan has to be? We have a comp plan, or we could have the board pass a resolution saying we want this. I mean, that's a plan, but that hasn't been hashed out yet, I guess.
It's not been hashed out. That's something we'll be bringing in January. But just for Commissioner Miller, all of the projects on the blueprint sales tax list are included in this as of now. And we are trying to figure out if it'll be the adopted county transportation strategy, comp plan, something like the Wakulla County bicycle and pedestrian
We have a comp plan. You know, it may be on this list, but not on the other one. And
right.
Doug?
Yes, I have a question for Brian. This may have been responded to already, and I missed it, but the safety committees and the safety projects that are done through DOT, those are funded as a separate bucket of money. Is that not correct?
Yes, sir.
How do they tie into the work done by CRTPA? Is that independent of this group?
It's independent from the prioritization process. That we can take projects that the CRTPA identifies as safety issues, and we'll put that in our pot to use as candidate projects for those safety dollars.
Okay, go ahead.
If I can add to that, federal safety funds you must have a project prioritization process specific to safety, and those projects may advance without being in any plan. So if we identify a safety need, we can respond immediately for them. They're a very strange bird. Unlike pretty much any other federal transportation fund you will find that comes to us. But it is important to note that that is one of the unique features of that program. They can also be used on any roadway whatsoever. Typically, federal funds may not be used on a local street. Most of us probably live on, our homes face a local street because of the low traffic volumes. Safety funds can be used anywhere.
Okay.
We had
very unusual, very unusual.
We had the DOT fund several intersection alignment projects many years ago because they came through the community traffic safety team, and they weren't on anybody's list.
Well, that was my point. You know, we're hearing about this, but I know in Gadsden County, been successful in getting DOT to consider several projects that have not come through here as a result of that safety money. And I just wanted to make sure I clearly understood that would continue to be the case.
Just as a point of reference, one of the things that we're trying to do is work with a district safety consultant. And we're going to meet periodically with them to discuss any of those kinds of projects that may come up. So as you run across these things, if you'll let us know, we'll talk to those folks. They can begin the study process to look at these things. And we'll take whatever the CTSTs provide us as well to help support that.
May I follow up and ask this question? Does that also apply here in Leon County, that same rule? In other words, the same safety?
Safety funds?
Yeah.
Yes,
same process applies here.
Across all counties.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, is April here?
No. The next presentation is on 319 and the conceptual design and environmental reevaluation update. We have David Gilbert here with URS Consultants to give us that update.
It had April's name in it. It had April's name in there, that's why I was asking.
Good afternoon. I wanted to provide you guys with an update on our environmental reevaluation of Crawfordville Highway from US 98 to the 4 Points intersection in Leon County. Obviously, I'm not April Williams. She was not able to make it today, so I'm going to try to get through this for her. The project limits, the original study was, as you know, from 98 all the way to 4 Points, and this document was approved in 1996. Since then, the segment shown in blue, which is from Rivers Road, or where Wakulla Springs Highway and Crawfordville Highway intersect, all the way to 4 Points, has been four-laned already. And as I mentioned, a Type 2 categorical exclusion was approved in August of 1996. So the point of the study we're doing right now is, because of the age of the old document, we want to reevaluate that and make sure there haven't been any changes since then.
This is just for the blue section?
No, the red section is our focus area right now. The blue section has been constructed. It is 4-lane urban.
It's been constructed?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I didn't know. I guess it's close to Oak Ridge Road, is it? I guess it is close to Oak Ridge Road.
That's from 61 up.
Yep. Everybody good with that?
Just drove through it.
Okay. The focus area, which was red in the previous slide, is broken into 7 segments. Might be a little hard to see the different colors, at least it is from me back here. What we're doing right now is we've kind of changed our focus from the entire corridor to 2 segments. The -7 segment is from East Ivan Road, which is just north of the urban Crawfordville area, just north of Walmart, up to just north of 267. So it'll include that intersection at Bloxham. And the second segment picks up from there and goes north to the Leon County line. We're trying. The tentative schedule is to have those reevals approved by April or May of 2015. And the reason for that is the DOT has secured funding for the -7 and -8 projects beginning in 2016 through 2018, and then the -7 segment 1 year later to 2019.
What's -5? Which one is that?
The -5 is the intersection project at 98 in Crawfordville. Correct.
That's the one that's already funded.
It is funded, yes. And now this is through Wakulla Springs State Park. Obviously, the corridor goes right through. It's on both sides of the road. This is the -8 segment I was just speaking about, which is being advanced. Currently, we're working with the state park to determine what type of mitigation we can perform for having to put stormwater facilities on their property. If you look at the top left of the slide, you'll see an alternate site that out of all 4 facilities may be the only one that we can remove from the state park. We're waiting on geotechnical information to determine feasibility.
New Light Church Road, Kristen. I see you're asking. Okay.
No, I'm not asking. I knew that.
Okay.
So,
whatever you say.
I went to summer camp there.
And that's where we are right now.
YMCA version?
You're on a different road altogether.
Well, then I didn't.
There.
Thank you very much, Randy. Please go ahead.
No, that's the end of it. That's, our update. We're advancing the 2 segments. We're working with State Park, trying to get a de minimis approval for impacting the 4F property.
Excellent. Kristen, I'll go ahead and ask your question.
I didn't even raise my card. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
All right,
that's not because your presentation.
This is an informational item only, but we do have some speakers on it. And I should say that, in working with DOT, this was the priority that Wakulla County set, that they wanted to switch from going from the south to the north, but from the north down to the south. So that's where DOT has made some adjustments to address those segments.
Still having problems permitting from the Leon County line north to tie into the existing 4-laning, right?
That's correct, and that runs through through the National Forest, and we're also coordinating with the USFS to determine some mitigation actions for that property as well.
Is this going to be presented to our board in Wakulla?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, advancing the 2 segments, I believe there's going to be a public hearing.
I think April came once and talked about it, but
Okay.
I'll let the
Mr. Mayor, let me raise this card
Go ahead.
before you take it from. This goes back to my question to Brian, since we're getting into this, and the question about the funding of the interchange. And I'm asking this question for the benefit of the people that will be coming forward. The project down there was funded through the safety program. Was that not correct?
The intersection realignment?
Yes.
No, it did not utilize safety dollars.
It's not a safety project?
No, sir.
So, okay. So just for my own understanding, how is that being funded? I know it was leftover money from transportation project downstate move forward.
It was. It was funds that were originally associated to a capacity improvement elsewhere in the state, based on good bids or whatever, we want to talk about. The funding was made available, and so it came to District 3, and we applied it to a project that could utilize the funds in the fiscal year in which they were available.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions for the presenter? Okay, good. Our citizens, Pam Phillips.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Pam Lee. Okay. David Damon.
Thank you again, Commissioners. I want to talk for a minute. You talked about if what you're hearing is half true, then maybe we need to pause and rethink this. What you're hearing from this group that came tonight or this afternoon is completely true. The safety study was done by FDOT, 2 accidents in 5 years, yet we are told over and over again that this is a safety issue. How can that be with 2 accidents in 5 years? If it's not a safety issue, then you have to ask, what is the motive behind this? Well, a lot of us see the motive as being strictly money. In 2010, there was an appraisal done on 2.6 acres that belongs to Commissioner Moore for this right-of-way. 2.6 acres in rural, wooded Wakulla County. The appraisal for the 2.6 acres came in at $142,000 in 2010. Since then, the real estate market in Wakulla County has continued to slowly decline. 2 years later, a new appraisal came in, $885,000. Now, you ask yourself how 2.6 acres in wooded Wakulla County becomes worth $885,000. A 600% increase. This is taxpayer money. This is a misuse of taxpayer money. The further cost to the citizens, the taxpayers of Wakulla County now will be to move the water and utilities. Now the BOCC has to come up with, well, for the utilities, not for the water, but the total for those is $726,000 more or less. This is on the back of the taxpayers of Wakulla County. And if you ask our commission to vote, they're going to vote in favor of this project because it's a pet project by a fellow commissioner. And I can guarantee you the way the vote will be is 4-1. And the only one that will vote against it is Commissioner Kessler, who had the fortitude to come here this afternoon and speak against it. As far as workshops, on the current design of that intersection, there has not been one single public workshop, not one, on the current design. They held after the prior to the purchase of the $885,000 given to Commissioner Moore. I should add that. Since the purchase, and since Commissioner Moore got his $885,000 for 2.6 wooded acres in Medart, they held a public forum at the church down there. They've held 2, I think, where you could walk around and look at pictures that are on easels and ask those individuals a question, but not a public hearing, not a public workshop, nothing to vet this out for the taxpayers, nothing. Thank you for the 2 of you, I believe, that said we need to have a public workshop, we need to hear them. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that. Appreciate that.
Dr. Kessler?
Afternoon again. Thank you for allowing me to present. I think what's most upsetting to me is that this project did not come before our board. That FDOT chose to speak to a constitutional or two, but the process was flawed right from the beginning. This never came before our board. When it did come before our board, prior to 2010, around 2008, 2007, it came in the form of the Traffic Safety Committee, saying they had a problem with buses on 98 backing up traffic when they were coming in. And one of the solutions that was proposed at that time was to allow the shoulder to be asphalt so these buses could line off of 98. But as far as workshops, as far as presenting to the board, in 2007 I had a town hall meeting, I believe. FDOT used that in their package of public workshops. I don't know that they had one on their own, but I know at my town hall meeting there were citizens that were upset with what they were hearing, never formally proposed to the board, and the realignment never formally proposed to the board. So how would you feel in your city or in your county that FDOT would come in after the fact and say, here's what we're doing. We're going to triple the traffic in front of your high school to make it safer. It doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Dana Peck.
Dana Peck, 2481 Surf Road, Panacea, Florida. I'm just here to ask you how you can take formal action on the letter you wrote on July the 22nd that says this seems not to have been vetted and we'd like FDOT to review the alternatives, July the 22nd of this year. It was frustrating and depressing to hear the misrepresentations that were stated from members of your agency today. Very depressing to me. I felt like a little kid yelling to adults, your britches on fire, and they said, well, we don't change our britches in public. So I do not understand misrepresentations, but for the record, I would like to say that it was not until March that FDOT came to Wakulla County to talk about this project, and they did it because the improprieties or perceived improprieties had become public, and people were beginning to scream about it. I'd also like to add that the commissioner who benefited from all of this surprise intersection plan is the alternate in Wakulla County to the chairman that you have here. And they were the only two people who were in on this knowledge until we started digging and found out what was happening. Now, we feel betrayed. There are a whole lot of people that feel betrayed. Put that aside. You're saying here, where are the alternatives? Please consider alternatives for safety and for public input. Those are just fundamental requests from a county. They are reasonable. This project is not reasonable. And as for funding, it came under construction. And there was a flurry of emails like, ooh, the project is a go. We've got to buy right-of-way. Where are we going to get it? And somebody said, well, let's put it under construction. So that's where it is, I'd like you to know, according to records, not some misinterpretation from me. In addition to that, the people of Wakulla County have just found out that they are going to have to come up with $420,000. May not sound big to big cities, but that's a lot in Wakulla County to pay for the utility relocation of this new intersection. A terrible hit to our budget because the commission had raised taxes on utilities to get the budget into balance. This is unbudgeted, $420,000. Now, you all don't have to concern yourselves with that, but you are the agency that is responsible for planning. So when will you take action on your own letter to FDOT? Thank you.
All right. Next is the interchange operational analysis report.
Yes, we have a
Go ahead and put your card up, Kristen.
This is a representative from RS&H to give us an overview of this report.
Engineer, you know.
Yes, thank you. I'm Josh Hollingsworth with RS&H, and hope to give you an update on what we've been working on with these two interchange operational analysis reports here in Tallahassee. Just to kind of give you some situational awareness, we're looking at the Capital Circle Northwest interchange with I-10 and the Capital Circle Northeast interchange with I-10. I'm going to give you a quick background on kind of where we are with the studies, and then I'll go into each of those, our findings on each of those studies with subsequent slides. So as you see, where we kind of fall right now is right between the planning and the PD&E study. So we're still very early on in the planning phase, and as far as the overall process. And just kind of give you an idea, as far as the interchange studies go, anything from an interchange justification report, which would be like a new access point, to an interchange modification report looking at modifying geometry. Well, we're doing the interchange operational analysis report, which is the way that we can document a traffic or safety analysis or any kind of minor modifications. And on the right there, you see that chart. We're sitting right now, the operational analysis is complete, and we're doing the FDOT and FHWA review. So to give you background on where this began, the I-10 multimodal master plan that was conducted a few years back identified these two interchanges as not meeting the adopted level of service in 2040. So the top table there shows the AM peak period, the bottom table shows the PM peak period, and then the red circles identify the intersections that were associated with those interchanges that were not meet. Oh, yes, sir.
Ask you just background story. You say, I know you're analyzing level of service based on different designs. Did you say you also analyzed safety?
We did do a safety analysis, yes, sir, as part of that.
Like if we do this option, this many more accidents will occur, this many less?
We did it based off of the existing last 5 years, taking a look at the accidents that have occurred, and we used that as part of the analysis to make sure there weren't any areas that we needed to focus some more attention on. But we have not conducted a study that looks at the individual alternatives to analyze what kind of safety issues might be present there. So again, this just kind of show. Oh, yes, sorry.
On the way questions, I wanted to be clear that I understood whether you have based this study on. My understanding is that you've based the study on existing conditions out there. If the existing conditions remain in place into the future, this is what you expect. Correct?
That's correct.
All right, and you're proposing the fixes based on existing conditions.
Well, we did the analysis in the future conditions, but we looked at a no-build scenario that goes off of, in other words, if there was no changes to the existing network, but we did grow traffic and we didn't do any adjustments, then we did base the analysis on that. And I think I'll be able to show a couple more slides on that. Maybe that might clear it up. Okay.
Nancy, you had a question?
No, I'm waiting
Card's
for
still up.
later.
Okay.
Why don't you get first in line?
So if I could start with Cap Circle Northwest, the analysis included the intersections associated with the interchange as well as Commonwealth Boulevard, and then included the influence area on I-10. So again, our 2040 no-build analysis, this figure might be difficult to read, but the results of our analysis show that the interchanges are all going to meet the adopted level of service in design year 2040. So we did, in order to for due diligence, we did look at a few alternatives that could still improve the overall operations of the interchange, and that's what I've got shown on these next 3 slides. So the first alternative was to add a left turn off of the I-10 eastbound off-ramp. The second alternative would be some sort of a loop ramp that would allow you to, if you're heading eastbound on I-10, to then be situated to head northbound on Capitol Circle Northwest. And then the third alternative would be a flyover elevated facility that would take you over the interstate and then come back down on Capitol Circle Northwest. But again, I want to make sure that it's clear that the no-build, our analysis shows that the no-build scenario meets the adopted level of service. So we're not proposing any sort of improvements here. So with that, I'll move to the Cap Circle Northeast, which I think might be of more interest. For this influence area, we looked at the 11 signalized intersections in this area. Starting on the southern end is Metropolitan Boulevard. The northernmost intersection is Killarney Way. And then, of course, the influence area on the interchanges or the interstate as well. So the major issues that were faced in this area is that you've got the 3 major roadways, Thomasville, Capitol Circle Northeast, and I-10, with high traffic volumes. And just to try to give a little perspective, you've got I-10 carrying almost 60,000 vehicles a day. That's a 6-lane limited access facility. And then if you look at Thomasville Road, north of the junction with Capitol Circle Northeast, you're seeing about the same amount of traffic. And again, this is based on the 2013 traffic counts that are out there through the DOT's website. And so we're trying to put about the same amount of vehicles through a signalized arterial with, you got 7 intersections, signalized intersections within about a mile stretch of road. And on top of that, you've got, of course, all of the driveways and access points along Thomasville Road and Capitol Circle that it can make it difficult from a congestion standpoint. Now, this is the 2013 AM analysis. This is based on the existing conditions as well as the existing traffic counts that we conducted. You can see Timber Lane is the intersection that is failing in the AM. And then this is the PM. You see Timber Lane, Market, Village Square, Killarney, and then the Raymond Deal, Capitol Circle Northeast intersections. And these are all based on the adopted level of service is LOSD. So we're looking at anything that's an E or F is listed there in red. And again, this is our 2013 analysis here. So as we were beginning to look at this, we looked at about 10 alternatives. I'm not going to focus on alternatives 1 through 5. They were limited by geometric constraints, extensive right-of-way impacts, and limited level of service improvements. So I'll talk a little bit more just about those 3 at the bottom, and I'll touch a little bit on the transportation system management and operations alternative there. So Commissioner Miller, for this would be the results of our 2040 no-build analysis that shows, again, no build, but our 2040 traffic counts projected. So you can see, again, I think 7 of the intersections are failing in either one or both of the AM or PM peak periods. So one of the things we want to look at with the TSM&O, the Transportation Systems Management and Operations alternative, where if there would be any sort of impacts with the 2, I'm careful to say proposed, maybe it's better to say potential interchanges at Meridian and Welaunee. They were identified in the I-10 master plan as something that people have maybe expressed interest in. I know that they may not necessarily be desired or even feasible, but we did want to at least look at them to make sure we covered all of the aspects of it. So we ran the analysis if you were to put an interchange in at Meridian Road and what the impacts might be to our study area. And you do see a slight decrease in traffic on Thomasville Road, but it only equates to about 3,500 cars a day, which when you look at your peak hours, it's only about 300 vehicles during the peak hours. And we did the same thing for Welaunee. Very similar results, decrease of about 2,500 cars along Thomasville Road for the day, which equates to about 200 in the peak hours.
Can I ask a quick question, though?
Yes.
So this has to do with as we see it today, though, right? I mean, in other words, with some predictions. But, I mean, the Welaunee has a lot of development lined up in there, and none of which can happen without some of that making changes. I mean, in other words, what your proposal is, and what you're running this on assumptions. Welaunee's got, I don't know what the total number is. It's a lot of vacant lots, and when we go to develop that, you got to have a relief, and so
right.
But that's not factored into this. You're just basing it on what we
may have another market crash, and you can't factor that in, I guess.
Well, I know, but I'm just trying to get an idea. I mean, we're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place because we can't develop that property without having the interchange there.
Right. And I think that the idea was, because again, that both of these interchanges are kind of outside of our scope of our study, but we did want to at least do the due diligence of looking at it. Okay, if you were to put it in, would it have a significant impact on this study area? Because if so, we would want to know that and help us to make those decisions. Yes.
I think maybe this will help clarify the question. Do your 2040 or future traffic projections include development at Welaunee, or have you just taken the trend analysis and projected it in a straight line to get your future traffic numbers?
Right.
How do you come about getting those?
Sure. Yeah, what we did to develop our traffic forecast is we did look at the CRTPA travel demand model, which so we did use that as a data point. We also used the historical trends and population growth to develop that. But we did use a straight line growth to get from 2013 to 2040 based on those data points.
I'm curious if you ran the same numbers with Welaunee being fleshed out.
Well, what would happen here is if we were to then put it into the model,
right,
we could then allocate the population and employment into different places in the model so that those trips start and end maybe in this vicinity or maybe 5 or 10 miles out. You'll get different impacts on your traffic volumes at different places inside your traffic patterns here, and that can greatly influence it. So yeah, it's kind of a catch-22.
Right.
If we don't develop something to access Walani, it probably won't develop.
If you build it, they will come, is what you're saying.
I don't want to say that, but yep.
So that's,
I don't want that to come out of my mouth.
well, that's part of my, Mr. Chair, can I keep going? So that answers part of my question, which is, what would be the impact if we develop Walani? And clearly, that's not factored in. And the second one is, we all are looking at Walani as kind of where the next urban infill will be in the community. Thomasville Road, I drive it every day, is a train wreck, and all your failures through there are very obvious. So I see us needing to do something there. My concern is we do something there, and it's at the risk of not being able to do Walani, because now we've just shifted funding. So it becomes an either-or kind of discussion as we go forward from a funding model. So just throwing that out for general.
And Brian is getting such great discretion because he's fixing to have to leave, right?
Yeah.
So he want to get his 2 cents in. Everybody else, we can just wait.
Well, can we say happy birthday to Brian on the
Yes.
record before he goes?
And
then?
sing if you want to.
No, I really won't. Yeah.
Motion, it would die of a second, probably.
Okay. Happy birthday.
I'm good, thank
Happy
you, appreciate
birthday.
it.
Last formal action as chairman. Let's let him finish.
Okay, so the first build alternative would be alternative 6, reversible flyover. So I don't know if you can see on the diagram, the green lines represent where that elevated roadway would start and end. So it would pick up north of Metropolitan, go above the interstate, come back down and touch down north of Killarney. And there's also a elevated roadway that kind of parallels the existing southbound flyover that's on Capitol Circle Northeast. You see, picks up it'll be just south of Killarney Center Boulevard, and then again tie into the Thomasville Road flyover and touch down north of Killarney. Now the catch with alternative 6 is reversible, so it would operate southbound in the AM and northbound in the PM to accommodate the flow of traffic in the different times of day.
This is your area of study, so how do you really see people getting onto Thomasville Road from Killarn if you touch down north of Killarney Way?
Right. As far as if you try to bring it down south of Killarney?
No, I just am asking you. Surely you can tell me.
Well, the study did. Again, we're in the early planning stages right now, so we're going to have to obviously do some more studying as far as origins and destinations to know exactly, who you would be able to service with this. So we did use the existing travel demand model to come up with some estimations on how many folks that may service that have origins north of Killarney and destinations south of the study area. So we use that in order to develop our volumes for how many folks may be actually using this. But again, we probably, in the next phases, we would want to do an origin and destination study to try and understand that more. The other issue is with Killarney being part of our, in the study area, if you pull the flyover south of Killarney, then that intersection is one of the failing intersections that's going to remain failing. And then I can't necessarily talk as well to the geometric side of things as far as trying to tie that in right there, but I know that there's a pretty extensive influence area that's needed in order just to make that transition. So to get people from the flyover to the at-grade network again, there's going to be some extended roadway needed to do that. And so I don't know geometrically if that would be.
So those people, the people that are entering Thomasville Road from not only Killarn, but also from everywhere else along your failing intersections, all are piling onto Thomasville, and we're going to fly all the people that are coming in from the north over the top of all these people, but then they all have to meet up on the south side, and that seems like to me a big problem.
Well, some of the traffic that's going through the area that wouldn't take the flyover would be accessing the shopping and that sort of thing that's in the area there. There's also a lot of folks that get on the interstate, so the folks that are taking the interstate are still going to stay at grade. That's a pretty significant portion of the traffic. So once you get past the interstate, then the traffic does decrease a good bit, and so you can actually make that happen.
I'm not shooting the messenger. Thank you very much for coming.
Yes.
There are more slides to go.
Okay, I'll read this. Main point of this slide is just to show you the red hatched area kind of shows where that flyover would be in relation to Thomasville Road. The left side of the screen is the south area heading north when you go to the right. The biggest difference between Alternative 7 would be it operates both directions. So it's a wider structure to accommodate northbound and southbound travel throughout the whole entire day. So it's not reversible. And again, just kind of showing you what that may look like. And then this is kind of a screenshot from Google Earth to show what type of structure it could potentially look like with the straddle bents that was used in the design. More gee whiz. And the last alternative is the diverging diamond interchange. This will look pretty much the same as alternative 7 if you're north of Timber Lane. But south of that, the interchange there on Thomas Road would be a diverging diamond interchange. This would allow us to, instead of going take the flyover to the third level over I-10, it allows us to pick the flyover up in between the interstate and Timber Lane to kind of decrease that big jump in the profile. And this, try to talk a little bit about how this would function. If you're on the left side of the screen, heading to the right, you're heading northbound on Thomasville Road, you would cross over at the intersection of Raymond Deal to the left side of the road for a period of time, and then cross back over at the next intersection. What that does is it allows the left turns to flow more smoothly and to decrease a lot of the delay that we get from the left turn. So especially the eastbound off-ramp, which in that is the top left up and down road on that slide. That's the eastbound off-ramp. That left turn movement's a pretty heavy movement, and this allows it to flow into the northbound traffic a lot more smoothly.
We put that in front of our high school.
So just to kind of show you the measures of effectiveness, all three of them, you see a significant improvement, and all three alternatives do provide about the same amount of overall network delay. And then, of course, the slide that everybody's waiting for is the price tag. You can see alternative 6, which is the reversible flyover, is the cheapest. Alternative 7, because of the additional structure needed to operate in north and southbound directions, is the most expensive. And then the diverging diamond interchange, alternative 8, would kind of come in the middle because you're eliminating some of that structure that's needed for the other two flyovers. And again, these estimates do not include right-of-way cost. Again, we're in the operational analysis, interchange operational analysis report. So the next phases of this, if it were to move forward, is to move into PD&E so we can get it out into the public, to begin the discussions, to do some more of that analysis, understanding some of the origin destinations, and get the input back from the community.
No alternatives have been picked yet.
No alternatives have been picked. These are just presented as, again, documenting the results of our analysis. These are some alternatives that fix the problems based on our analysis and our traffic counts. And then this is just kind of an extended project schedule. Obviously, if money was no issue and there's no other holdups, kind of what the timeline might be.
You can go ahead and tell us which one's really been picked.
What's that?
Just kidding.
Most expensive one. Right.
Almost done. Hold on.
So that's it. That's all the questions.
I'm going to just make a quick comment, if I could. We had an intersection of two-lane roads in Wakulla County. Had 8 people come speak about it. If you had the same per capita citizen input, we'd be here till 10 o'clock tonight. Go ahead.
Is there any questions?
Yes.
Lots of questions.
Well, the first thing is that I don't think that anyone up in this area is aware of this, or I guarantee you this room would be full of people who would have comments. And that will, we're going to put that off until our commission meeting whenever people do find out about it. I had so many questions that I can't address them all. But the main point I really would like to make is that when you've been addressing this, you've ignored, it seems to me, and like I said, I'm not shooting the messenger, but the study, it seems to ignore the main problem, which is the number of cars that we're trying to be moving down Thomasville Road. So I really would like to see much more discussion of the various intersections and how we can divert people away. This is such a massive traffic artery and carries so much traffic that it can't be looked at just in the study area that goes from Metropolitan to Killarney. I mean, you have to look at it in terms of the entire traffic patterns of the entire area, who all end up over there, many of them twice a day. So looking at other broader options as to how to improve those intersections, I think is really important. And have to ask how we got, I think the way we got to the intersection problems that we have right now up there that have been repeatedly tried to be fixed over and over. I mean, there's Band-Aid upon Band-Aid up there. And the reason is that we're only looking at that little area. We're saying, oh my gosh, we've got all these cars, they're all trying to go through here. How can we make it easier? But we need to focus on trying to get some of those people off of Thomasville, first of all. Second of all, you didn't consider Olson Road as an option.
Okay.
And so if you'll address that in a minute. Finally, you also didn't consider the impacts to accommodating this larger traffic load on everything downstream all the way into Tallahassee, and which is already constrained. Granted, we've just passed a sales tax extension to deal with that real juggernaut that exists around Fifth Avenue and that whole area. And so we're going to take our sales tax money, we're going to fix that to keep people, to get people through there at all in the morning. And then we're going to make it easier to pile even more of them on top of the road. So we're talking about failing intersections up around the interstate, but improving that is only going to worsen the problems downstream. So I feel like the whole approach of just looking at this in a very limited scope is just problematic, and it's only going to get us deeper in debt, literally, but into a worse situation than we have now, ultimately.
Yes, and I would like the beginning of this study was an interchange operational analysis report. So it was a smaller scale study that was focused on the interchange. To include in the interchange, because of the closely spaced signals, we did need to look at the entire corridor right there. And so that's when, as you begin to get into it, you begin to see that there's a lot of issues. You head northbound, but at some point you do have to draw. I definitely understand and hear what you're saying. At some point you have to draw the boundary line for the sake, for the study. And that's I think the importance of moving into the next phase, to be able to do a more thorough analysis to understand fully what's going on.
When we do traffic concurrency analysis for development, that can extend miles and miles beyond. Just a simple development concurrency analysis extends miles and miles beyond the limits of that development. And yet here we are literally planning one of the most prominent, most heavily used intersections in our entire city in a little box. Mm-hmm. So I think that, I guess I don't know what answer I'm looking for from you, other than that you begin to get out of the box and look around at what's going on around there. I mean, Thomasville Road is a U.S. highway, and figure out how you're not going to be creating problems down the road that are worse, if that's a possibility, than they are now. So I think that your scope has been, I understand what you're saying about the interchange operational analysis. But when you just exclude anything that is elsewhere, like the Wulani interchange, it really doesn't get us anywhere, because obviously, and it's not just about Wulani Boulevard. It's also about how to get people, if you could leave Killarn from the back and go all the way to 90 and get where you needed to go that way. I mean, we need to be looking at a transportation grid, transportation network, not just looking at how to solve this problem based on looking at this small area.
Kristen?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And I do understand that you had a particular scope, the interchange analysis. You've got your way of doing that. And so some of our reaction, and I think I share a lot of Commissioner Miller's concern, I may need more direction on how we get the analysis that we're looking for with this broader implication of current and future roads that are outside of just what your scope is. So I'm not sure that's being put on your shoulders. I'm going to look to Harry in a second to give us more direction on how maybe we get some of that additional analysis. But first question, what are we being asked to approve today, if anything? Nothing?
There's nothing. This is just informational.
Because we no longer have a quorum, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Only the faithful few are still here.
Yes, and thanks to everyone.
Small county represented as much as Leon and Tallahassee put together, by the way.
I got to
Throw
say,
that
you're
out
holding
there.
it. I mean, at
Commissioner,
some
just-
point, we're just going to have to decrease CRTPA and, to the diehards.
Just so you know, though, they did ask before they left, so even though they had to leave, so it wasn't that they left and then we lost the quorum and we may have had action items. Not that that justifies anything, but
I mean, forgive me. You can be more diplomatic. It's important information, whether it's an update or a vote.
We
But
had our
I
way.
was
We'd
just
go ahead and vote
curious.
for one city commissioner and one Leon County commissioner.
Well, no, I'd be willing to share with,
All right. I'm going to keep going, though, because I know we do want to get out of here, right? Okay, so my feeling about this and looking at it, I do believe that, as Commissioner Miller said, more of the internal connectivity. If we think, we all know we were developed on spokes of a wheel. I wish Brian was still sitting here because anybody living out Thomasville Road might feel like it's a train wreck when you go home at 5 o'clock. We got some nice area in District 5 in Midtown, so you don't have to drive that far first. But it's much. I had to do it, but I had to go that way for a meeting recently. I know. I just, I have to. They're not here to defend themselves. Marianne represents the whole county, but it wasn't as bad as living in some cities. It is a congested 1 time a day, 2 times a day thing. I understand it's got to be frustrating, but there
not
aren't
like
a lot of
Tampa.
points. It's not Tampa. It's not some of the other big cities.
And I remember it was Tulane. You was probably in high school, but I remember.
Yes, probably was. But the real big issue I have here is that cities across the country, it seems, are taking down flyovers. They tend to create blight after 20, 30 years because you end up hiding some of the commerce area underneath. And I'll just say it right now, I am never going to support additional flyovers in that area until we look at this in different ways. Because I do believe that there are ways to divert traffic down Wilani Boulevard and other areas to the backside of Killearn, get them off Thomasville Road. It's our only access route. And until we do more analysis, I can't support anything that looks at more flyovers there. Although you got some creative ideas, I understand that, but that's just my 2 cents. So, Harry, back to you. How do we get? If we're going to be asked these questions in the future, we do want. I'm wondering where we are with Wilani interchange because I know there are steps that need to proceed there, but. How do we get a broader study that looks at the potential future roads? Because I think that would help all of us to see how the Wilani network, the proposed network, now the sales tax has passed, will help the entire east and northeast side of the county.
Well, I think you got some valid points there. I think one of our biggest things is, this is the first time we've even seen it. I've asked about this several times, and this is the first in-depth part of this, but we haven't seen the report, and I'd like to get a copy of the report, Brian, if we could, to analyze that, to see what went into it. I know there's been some changes since 2013 to the traffic signals, and that may have some impact on it. And I just need to make a statement here. We're not in a position, because you haven't seen the report and had a chance to analyze it, you got a lot of questions there, to proceed with any of the next steps, which says put this in the long-range plan or to put it in the TIP. And, is it the intent that they want to try to start this month?
Well, I'm sorry?
The TIP. It's showing that the next steps is you want to start the TIP this month.
Oh, I'm not sure that's the intent. I don't know if I can speak on DOT's behalf on that. But
well, like I said, we don't. This is not an agenda item, so there's no way we can make any adjustments to the TIP.
There was no request to add anything to the TIP at this point. And to answer some of the concerns, the next step would be a PD&E study, and that would look at the much broader area as far
Including
as
potential future roads that we've got in blueprint now?
I think those are the things that that we need to work out with DOT, which says if you do approve a move ahead with a PD&E, here's what you want to see in the PD&E.
Now, who would be a responsible party to handle this regional plan like that y'all are talking about? It certainly wouldn't be DOT.
That's what I'm wondering.
They don't have the resources to do it.
But that's what I'm concerned about, too. Who incorporates the blueprint projects, of which there are a lot that...
the city should do it.
Because it does, I understand that
You're the only one here.
interstates are built by the federal government, and, you're not interested in any of the other local roads, the things you have mentioned, Commissioner Miller. But who does oversee that?
Through the PD&E study, we'll take into account anything that's in any of the plans. If the blueprint plan is finalized and those projects are scheduled, we'll take those into account. As Welaunee moves forward, is more finalized, that'll be taken into account.
What do you mean by taken into account?
The impacts to the transportation system by those roadway networks will be the impacts to those roadway networks will be calculated into our analysis of the improvements.
How did y'all arrive at the conclusion that the Blairstone Road extension was going to help something? Did y'all do a study for that? Or?
Before my time.
Huh?
Before my time.
I think there were studies for it. I'm sure Gabe.
That seems like the same type of situation where this Blairstone Road extension will relieve this traffic, so it's worth funding. And your idea about running Killearn around to get out besides Thomasville Road
Exactly.
sounds like an internal matter.
Quick question.
Now, Doug's been waiting patiently.
Let me
later.
Well, can I follow up real quick, Doug, because this is in line with Mary Ann's questions to Brian real quick.
She jumped
Well,
that
beforehand,
line.
let me answer his
She's that
question
line.
about this. Blairstone is the first half of Welaunee Boulevard.
Hold on here. I want to say this. I appreciate this presentation, but it's flawed because you don't show how to put these people on bicycles and afoot. But back to something important. I happen to have a strong dog in this fight, so to speak, and discussion. Tomorrow evening, I will certainly be making sure that the Remington Green Owners Association is aware of this plan and study, because one of the things that is coming up here is that you speak about Welaunee. I'm open-minded about that, as I think most people up there would be. But if you'll notice, it's putting more traffic on Capitol Circle, and I just want to point out to you that Capitol Circle is maxed out now, just about. We got 6 lanes. I was out there when it was 2. You could lay down and go to sleep out in the middle of it. And now you go to sleep trying to get out on it. The point is, it's a problem where if your plans are going to dump more traffic on the Capitol Circle, that needs to be better evaluated, the impact of that. And when I look at these alternatives at the expense, and you start looking at 6, 7, and 8, even in most cases, you don't seem to, I may be misreading this, but it looks like about all it does is improve them to hold them at a D level. That's just one step away from the F.
The network delay, I think, the no-build alternative network delay is a 2,000-hour delay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but doing the other ones reduces, there's still a delay, but I guess it greatly reduces
Well, the point I'm trying to make, if he's grading them on the basis of A, through
Level of
F,
service, right.
Most of these only show an improvement in the, holding them at a D. Now, I realize this is a long way out, but I can tell you all that Capitol Circle Northeast is just about maxed out. And
what level of service
lanes.
It's at now?
Huh?
Capitol Circle Northeast.
I don't know. Not below, not south here, but it's what?
Nothing.
But we've got about 60. We've got 60,000.
We're required to memorize in Wakulla County level of service.
I want to hear from Ivan and what Star Metro is going to do to assist in this problem.
Well, but in the end,
significant.
If I may finish,
go ahead.
That
Sir.
These alternatives that are being presented here, as you have pointed out, and I think Mary Ann pointed out, they need to go further than just the immediate intersection area and look at this further south, because if we don't, we will be, and that may come, Brian, as you said later, but if we don't, I think you're just going to be moving the problem and making it worse, as you said, Nancy.
You have heard this
south.
before, right? That this has to be bigger than this intersection area? I mean, it seems like
yes, but
I can figure that
as
out.
he indicated at the beginning of this presentation, there's a first step to this process. This is the first step to look at the interchange. Next step is the PD&E, and that's when we look at the much broader study area.
You see how you've electrified this little group? Just think what the public is going to feel when they hear about it.
Think
so it's really important to have a holistic plan, a sense that we know there's a whole lot more going on.
I want to follow up only by asking Brian this question. You said that it will be expanded at the planning and engineering stage. Well, that means at that point, you've already chosen one of these alternatives to build.
No, we would not. We would not choose an alternative.
Okay.
But
So-
this is where my question
So that
was,
won't be a
Brian.
commitment.
No, sir.
Commit to PD&E does imply that we are going to make interchange improvements at that location in some alternative. To move to that step implies that we're going to do this project and we're going to select one of these alternatives, correct?
Because you have to have something
That
to
is not
engineer.
correct.
That's not correct.
No, moving to PD indicates that you will study it further in a much more expanded boundary.
Okay. I'd be very interested when this comes back to know kind of where the different decisions points, because I think you're here and we do want more information, but I don't want to get too deep into PD&E where it starts implying that we're going to put any money or want this interchange improvement before seeing how the other roads impact that in Walani. So if that needed to be an internal analysis of those before we went to DOT, I'm just curious about that in the future.
I don't think Harry certainly has the staff to do something like that. I think the big question here is who's the lead
Consultants.
agency on
Yeah.
determining how alternate routes will affect this intersection. I don't think DOT is. They're not going to look at what if the city built a road or the county. I don't know who pays for y'all stuff.
Well, I think
That's the question.
Carl,
Who's the
Carl
lead
can
agency?
probably answer that.
Let me try to
Main
maybe-
Tedder's back there. Are you going to dive in? I mean, that's,
Let me try and go ahead and add a little clarification to this process. The PD&E process, the core of it is we identify a problem statement. It's a mess. There's a lot of cars here and there's not enough capacity. From there, you have to develop different what-if scenarios. They're called your alternatives. One of them always has to be no build, to do nothing.
right.
And they're to be weighed against each other. So just as you saw 3 different alternatives here, you would theoretically also then be able to add in, if we know that the city was going to build, you mentioned Olson Road, which that's one of the secrets I use for getting through there. But, perhaps that becomes a 6-lane facility.
How about if you get on the interstate at that point?
Okay, and that would be perhaps something as well. You play out those different scenarios to look at what impact that could have in solving your problem statement. And so that's the step that they go through when they do these PD&E studies. Does that help to clarify that next step, to give you some assurances that there is a process here that is to be objective?
Nancy?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mary Ann, were you done?
No, I mean, you hear our skepticism because of, as Commissioner Miller said, the Band-Aids on Band-Aids, and so we see what's happened, and I think everyone is just really worried that we're just going to add one more, let's see if this works approach, and we pretty much are, just skeptics right here.
Very understandable. Commonly, that's a low-cost alternative that's attempted, and sometimes the bang for the buck is very reasonable. You invest a small amount of money and you get some relief.
Right.
Obviously not the level of relief, but not at the level of dollars being shown in this presentation. But yeah, it does after a while get a little monotonous of another Band-Aid.
Is the do nothing alternative always the cheapest, or do you take economic impacts into consideration?
You got it perfectly. It may cost
Nothing,
you
that's
more
cheap.
to do nothing. You are absolutely right. Very
But
good.
you don't take into account the economic impacts. I mean, if the do nothing costs 0, but it costs 2,000 hours delay, do you guys factor that in? That wasn't presented today, though, right?
We haven't been to that step yet.
Nancy?
Who knows?
All right, we're going to move on.
Well, it was important. Oh, I know what it was. I think that you might find that you all, and I'm sorry I'm always talking to you because these guys have a dog in this hunt too, but the fact is that one change may not make a lot of difference, no matter what the change is. And we may end up spending, by the way, right-of-way is not included, and you're going through a very intense commercial area. So there's that. A lot of people would have to literally tear down their buildings and relocate. It may be that in order to really resolve this, you're going to have to start looking at other options in addition to making changes here. So does that get addressed at the PD&E point or not? Or is it all about just looking at this one interchange all by itself?
In our PD&E analysis, the option of local road improvements are always available, but that is totally dependent on the local government and their ability to make those improvements.
Well, we're making the improvement to Oolani Boulevard already, and yet that didn't really seem to carry much weight in the report.
But again, his process related to the interchange. Next step being PD&E. Again, much wider study area.
Look at other options.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to put Olson on there again as a part of what you ought to look at.
Kristen?
I got my card's down. I'm good.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Let's adjourn.
Oh, can't
We
adjourn
got
yet.
Harry's report.
All right.
Executive Director report.
Let's adjourn.
It's your last
That's
one.
always friendly.
It's your last one. You can stay to the end.
Director's report, the only things I have to mention to you is that the MPOAC Weekend Institute has set its dates for April and May. If anyone's interested in attending, please let us know, and we will. Your travel will be covered by CRTPA. The second thing is again to mention what Brian had said about the tentative work program public meeting. It'll be December 2nd, 2:30 at Midway's Operations Centers. I will be attending. And once we get copies of the tentative work program, I will send it all out to all the board members
Take
and
your kids
everyone
with
else.
you too?
You want to punish him?
Your kids will love it.
All right, Doug. Do we have any citizens to be heard? Any items from any
No,
members?
we have just items from members is the next item.
Doug, if you want the honor of motion to adjourn.
I move adjourn.
Okay.
All right.
We're no citizens. Is there a
Thank
second?
you, Mr. Chair.
I don't think we should
He
adjourn
seconded that.
until Commissioner Walker says something.
I'd asked for those, and we didn't get any additional cards, so we don't have any more.
We got
Okay,
you.
we got a motion?
Yeah.
So, all right, we're adjourned.
All right.
I'm going to miss this good candy being chairperson.
And make our community this special place that we live in.
We had a great time last night at Family Fun Night here at Cascades Park. It's now Saturday, and Family Fun Day is in full swing. Let's check it out.